Thankfully, didn't spend any free Spurs tickets.
Yeah, did you get a burger? No, he charged me 80p to tell me they're out of fillet of fish.
Oh, brilliant. Can you remember when you was on We on Tottenham TV? And,
no, I wasn't. I was on another one. It was dreadful with Stelios, the toilet cleaner.
He's getting right pelters this week for managing to upset half the nation.
What was it you called the boys on the We Are Tottenham TV? Was it the Spectrum Brothers?
The Spectrum Brothers. That's their official trade name. Yeah, I've got to be careful because I'm going to end up paying a royalty. Yeah. You say something as a throwaway remark and it eats into your money.
Yeah, I was the funniest thing I ever seen on YouTube. I was absolutely loving it.
Well, I'd watched. Somebody sent me a clip and he said, "You've got to watch these guys." And I thought, "Oh, okay," but I didn't realise he was sending it as a prank. You know, like you've got to watch these guys. And there's one, and he's shaved his hair off now, but he had this incredible bouffant with the hairspray, and they're chatting away, and he goes, "I thought the game against Nottingham Forest was extremely exciting, blah, blah." And then pan to the other one who's sitting there and go, "Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed it. That was a good game." And I just thought, have these two escaped from somewhere? It just struck me as being the medication levels weren't right, but that's a nasty thing to say, and thankfully it's off air. So anyway, I'm going to start things off. Hello, everybody. Welcome to us again. Great to be here. Hopefully, the home of common sense when it comes to talking about football, especially Spurs. I'm joined here by an additional Chris. In addition to the initial Chris, we've got another one. And it is transfer deadline day. I'm sorry, this is going to be horribly out of date, but we haven't quite found our bowling links in terms of putting out these live streams. And it's a quality control thing. There are people doing live streams and they'll probably go on for 8 hours. You'll be pleased to hear we will not be here till 3 a.m. tomorrow because that's a waste of everybody's time. But the good news is we will not be shouting, oh, Ivan Toney's just gone to... So, everything is going to be a little bit time expired. We're more into looking at the nuts and bolts and the whys and the wherefores. I think that's a fair enough description. So, anybody want to kick us off with how happy they are? Let's get the excitement out the way.
Reasons to be happy. It's Friday and the pub opens in 4 hours. With the exception of that, from a Spurs perspective, another very underwhelming transfer window.
I thought it was extraordinary that we were told, just to give us a bit of context, is key. At the beginning of the season, I remember numerous articles from numerous journalists telling us that there was going to be a massive clear out. Contracts were going to be ripped up. That was a phrase I heard used. They were talking about a major overhaul. And that's something we absolutely haven't seen. We've seen what I would refer to as housekeeping. It's like when you go and look at a place and you think, yeah, it's okay. In actual fact, I've been working around the clock to get it to that standard, but there's nothing outstanding there. And that, to me, is how Spurs are. They're a house that's sellable, but there's no wow factor. And I think we'll come back to the sellable a bit later. But Chris, what were your thoughts on the window so far?
I just think it's. I was trying to think of a rating for it earlier, and I can't give it anything more than a 5. It's just it's completely middle of the road. I don't think we've improved the first 11 at all. Like the only one out of the players we've signed that are literally at the club at the moment, so I'm referring to that Yang Huck who's coming in January. But the only players we've signed so far that I'm actually interested to see more of is Lucas Bergvall. That's it.
I think the overwhelming majority of fans feel exactly the same way. And that Korean kid you just mentioned, we paid £4 million for him. So I won't be holding my breath. I wish him well, but I won't be holding my breath.
Yeah, it seems like a pure sort of marketing signing to me.
If we look at who has come in, because I think that's important. I think we discovered this morning that Solanke is unlikely to be available for Newcastle United, which is a little bit of a concern, to put it mildly. So we've got Solanke. Let's go around the table. Thoughts on Solanke? Pros, cons, suicide notes, whatever you've got.
Thoughts are that we've spent £65 million on a player based on one good season. His numbers aren't great. He's 27 this year, 28 this year. And with the exception of the 19 Premiership goals last season, he has been very, very, very average for the rest of his career. And we talk about this different approach to transfers. We talk about a data-led approach. We're supposed to have scouts all over the world. Well, what are they doing? Watching Homes Under the Hammer? Because nobody's pulled a rabbit out of the hat and presented to us somebody where we're all sat there going, wow, yeah, didn't see that one coming, or something slightly. And the other question is, if Solanke was our number one choice, why didn't we sign him in June? Why did we wait a week before the Premiership season kicked off, so that he could be embedded in the squad culture, could have the whole of the pre-season to hit the ground running? It makes no sense whatsoever.
I've got my own two penneth on the business of embedding players, embracing them, getting used to the culture, and getting them, used to the mechanics of the internal mechanisms of clubs and all the rest of it. And that goes on for days, so I won't bore you with it. But basically, I don't think Spurs care. I don't think Levy cares. Treats them like cattle. With Solanke, I discovered something the other day which kind of blew my mind. Maybe I mean, goodness me, I get paid in places for doing this. But, West Ham were in for this kid.
No, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Apparently, David Gold, or whichever one of them is still alive, the Dildo twins, one of them had meetings with him, and they couldn't do the money because he wanted like an everything ticket. He wanted the E-ride. He wanted the big deal, and West Ham couldn't really do it. They couldn't do the wages. They were talking about doubling his wages, but that came from a mate of mine who's West Ham. And he said, we were in for him as recently as back as May. And that, if you weren't feeling happy or confident about it, that to me is a bit like, dear me, he could have been at West Ham. And I could see that as a fit, being this massive football snob that I am. I could see him in a West Ham shirt. So
arguably, you could say that West Ham have got a better squad than Tottenham.
I just find it extraordinary that this is our headline signing, our box office signing. Archie Gray, Chris S. What do you think of him? We've only seen little bits and pieces, but
again, like when we signed him, all I really saw of him was the YouTube tips, which makes everyone look good. It seemed like a deal that was able to be done pretty easily between obviously Leeds and Spurs, with Roden going the other way. But again, all you're doing is you're buying potential. You're not actually buying someone to go straight into the first 11 and make a difference. And even with like Solanke, like we're getting back to him, his stats or averages only match up to Richarlison, and we're not happy with Richarlison. So it doesn't. There's no one there that really excites me at all. I think the best bit of business is Lucas Bergvall for the money and what he actually looks like when he's played. That seems like a really good signing. But that for me, that would be one that I would put in amongst someone coming straight into the first 11. Like if we'd signed Paulinho, for example, and Lucas Bergvall, you'd go brilliant, excellent business.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the reception that I've got from hearing fans online across the board, and when I say that, please always with the caveat that this is not the under 12s. I'm talking about the grown-up section. Yeah. And they're seeing Bergvall for what he is. He's a guy who has a footballing kind of dynamo going on inside him. There's a presence to him. Archie Gray. Now, I'm not like slating the guy. I'm not slandering the guy, but I haven't seen anything to get me vaguely excited. And people say, "Oh yeah, but the potential." Well, fantastic on the potential. 11 out of 10 with the potential. But he's probably played maybe 15, 16, 22 minutes at the absolute push, including pre-seasons. So it's pretty damning to say, well, I don't see anything. However, and I know he's been good at Leeds. I get that. I understand that. However, I wouldn't mind seeing just a little bit more from him, even with the small amount of minutes that he's had. But Lucas Bergvall, for me, and I think many others, which you always hear people saying, oh, I for one, but I think it's true. I think there's a general vibe in the camp that Bergvall looks like he could be the business. Definitely, there's going to be little bits of naivety. There's going to be little bits of would prefer this, blah, blah, blah. But that's his age. But generally speaking, he looks absolutely spot on. And then the list goes as far as Wilson Odobert, and the big kerfuffle over that was that nobody heard anything about it. Chris B, what do you think about him?
So they're against Everton on Saturday, and again he's a young lad, but the initial signs were promising, and that promise was that he appears to be an old-fashioned winger who can drop his shoulder, drop his head, and he can dribble at pace, something that none of our other wingers can do. So again, it's early days, but the brief 60-minute cameo was promising. But there's a big difference between youth with promise evolving into the finished product, as opposed to signing that finished product, that 28, 29, 30-year-old who's been there and done it, who can contribute immediately and can raise the level of the team from the point they put on the shirt, and they strengthen that side overnight. So encouraging early signs, but like many we've seen before, will he fulfill that potential? Only time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, but that's that. And see, the problem we've got is, and I think the general mood is that if anything else happens on top of these signings, these four names, and again, I'm going to say that just for those of you, hard of hearing, this South Korean kid, he's £4 million, and that's what you get now. To be honest with you, the story for me of the day has been around Paul O'Keefe. He's I can't remember what the FA intermediary, which I think says that he has a relationship with agents and connections to players, so he knows his onions. Extraordinary reaction to what he came out with on social media last night. Typically, you've got, like, as I say, the incels who can't emotionally cope with being told anything that isn't happy and upbeat. So they've decided that Paul O'Keefe is a nasty bag of hot air, and there's worse out there. But Gold My Beer from Football London is actually a really good chap, because he's holding the line, and it's not impossible we could sign somebody else. But he came out with a whole number of quotes, but the killer one here is, they've neglected key areas. Those players are absolutely fine if they are complemented by a couple of proven, experienced players and areas not neglected. They spent a year prepping for this window and are short again, despite their flirting with dozens of players and clubs. I think that couldn't be more accurate.
Spot on.
And I wonder who they spoke to, because what happened to Eze? What happened to the guy at Palace?
I ain't got a clue. I don't know why no one else has got him for Eze either. It's a bit like the Ivan Toney thing. It's like, why is it like the last day that someone's looking? But
and for a year and a day, we were linked with the Brazilian central midfielder from Atlanta, and his name kept on coming up and coming up and coming up to the point it disappeared off the radar. Nobody's been in for him. Yeah, but in any other industry, those that had failed to complete the task they were given would have been ejected from the building. But at Spurs, no chance. Welcome to the country club. You can play golf, you can have well marinated and prepared steaks, and nobody's going to hold you to account. But there has been a massive failure within the club to address key areas, and it's going to come back to bite us on the arse for the remainder of the season.
I'll just finish this thing on O'Keefe, because one thing he says, because I think a number of us had said that looking at the way the business was unfolding, it was unfolding a very small napkin, but the way it was unfolding was that there was certainly, you got the impression that they were taking care of that, and I used the phrase before, housekeeping, in terms of the wage bill and keeping the overheads down. And O'Keefe says here, which very few people have even passed comment on, because it does require a sort of a mental leap. But he says, well, maybe, but if you're valued at, say, 3 billion due to expenditure, then 20% of that is a 600 million investment. Reduce your outgoings, and the saving equates to 20% of the amount saved. New valuation becomes 4 billion, and 20% costs someone 800 million. So the idea of getting the wage bill down, and I'm not a lecturer in mathematics, so I can't profess to completely understand this, but I've got a rough handle on it, that if you do present a business which has got lower wage structure, it streamlines it significantly, because the reality of life is there are very few other variables. You're always going to have to pay the same for electric, you're always going to have to pay the same for petrol, blah, blah, blah. So this looks to me, and we've got that woman from former Newcastle United lady kicking around in the background, plus other, I think maybe a little bit kind of made up stories. But it could well be the case that yet again, Levy's been distracted from the key thing. Chris S., what do you feel it lies in Levy's heart as far as football is concerned?
Football, I don't think he's that interested, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's just a case of we need to make a reasonable league position, hopefully get into Champions League. And I think it's just like dampening the expectations, really. I think he's quite happy to just plod along. Obviously, Spurs, the football club, is not the only thing that generates revenue for him, being the fact that we've got Levy Land and the Skywalk and all this other stuff that we've got going on, the kart track. So I think it's definitely gone down the pecking order, Tottenham as a football club. And that's what's frustrating for like the likes of the older fans, where we never had any of these exciting Levy Land adventures that go on there now.
The most exciting thing we had was getting home without getting a fist in the back of our heads, I think.
Exactly, yeah.
That was where the thrills kicked in. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see anything in Paul's critique, and I'm not a great pal of his, but I do have respect for the guy. I don't think he's a patsy. I think he speaks his mind. I think he's on that side of the business. He's a little bit more corporate. And when he does tell people, he's got a significant social media following, it's nice to tell people things they want to hear. But the reality is, he summed it up there. They've neglected the key areas, and there isn't the depth. And Levy has expanded all that side of the business. He's got Lang and Postecoglou's gaggle of, I have to say, frankly, half-witted coaching staff. I mean, the CVs of those guys do not add up at all to anything that gets you excited. But you can employ whoever the heck you want, but it makes no difference if the board controller is sat there saying, no, thank you. And I think he does a lot of that. We saw it during the stadium. The Levy family waltzed around pulling faces and saying, I'd like to move that over there. And wouldn't that be better if it was a different shade? And they screwed up the sound thing, which I'll go on forever because it's true. They cost us an absolute fortune. And it's our money. That's the thing that none of these kids seem to understand. It's our money. Every time you're buying a ticket for 70, 80 quid, it's our money. But yeah, as to goal, technically it's far too early to say it's done, as who knows what moves around in the market in the final 24 hours. Thank you for that ever so much. But Fabrizio Romano summed it up for me. This is his daily briefing that goes out every single morning, and this one went out at breakfast time this morning. Tottenham Hotspur are not listed. All the big clubs across the globe, and this to me is like for the same people that don't get the Deloitte Money League's significance, right? So you're talking about the biggest clubs across the globe, and there's nothing there. Yesterday, he said the same old garbage we've been hearing for weeks, truth be told, months, if not. Real Betis is still in talks for Giovanni Lo Celso, and negotiations taking place. Tottenham not accepting current conditions of the deal. So it looks to me, and I always use this phrase, I think I got it from the thick of it, that there's a blockage. And I think the blockage at this club is Daniel. And when you say that to these youngsters, they say, "Oh, you always say that. You're so mean. Did he upset your sister or something?" No, it's just a constant. And as Chris said there, you get rid of people that don't perform. And this guy's underperformed Yeah, he's fantastic when it comes to leveraging money. He's an absolute whiz. But when it comes to doing the stuff that you need, making your first 11 football squad, your team, one that can compete. And Chris, you said to me this morning, Chris B, you were talking to me about Jamie Redknapp.
Yeah, 100%.
And he said that back in his day, it was the same.
Yeah, there's a video currently doing the rounds social media wise, and I'm not the biggest Redknapp fan, but you listen to that video and every word rings true. Yeah. And then you think about appointments of late. So Scott Munn comes in from the City Football Group, who was managing one of the Man City concerns over in Australia or somewhere. So what's his actual day-to-day remit? What does he actually do? What does he contribute to the club? The idea and the notion was that Levy was going to step away from football operations, had brought somebody in at great expense to the club, and he was going to concentrate on the off-pitch business interests. But again, you can't take a megalomaniac away from his own railway set, can you? The fat controller always wants to fat control. Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. How does it exhibit itself? How does it reveal itself? Well, it's fat and it's controlling. Yeah. You know, and that's what we get. Chris S, who do you think we should have bought? Because we could wallow around pointing the finger at the mastermind forever. But I mean, where do you think we're light?
Definitely at centre half. I think we would have. It would have been a good idea to buy another left back just to get rid of Ben Davies. Let off you go, mate. You've been here long enough. I wanted. I said at the start of summer, I said if we used to get Tony, Eze, and Paulinho, those three players go straight into the first 11, and I think they would have made a difference for us. But I also did have a caveat with that. I said I don't think it matters who we sign under Ange, because I'm not a big fan of him. I don't think the way he plays, he's not very adaptable, and he doesn't want to sort of use the players he's got in their right positions. The Porro Adobe thing for me is a big point of contention because they were bought as wing backs and yet we're playing them in central midfield. It just doesn't make sense to me. The squad we've got is set up for Antonio Conte, but we've got Postecoglou after the horses bolted.
So, I agree with you. I don't have huge faith in Postecoglou for the simple reason that I'm very old-fashioned. I'll give everybody a go, but I like to look at a man's CV. Now, frequently when you're recruiting youngsters, people who don't have a CV, what you're looking for is that they're not going to let themselves down and let your company down by having no world experience. But the moment you're talking about grown-ups, you're looking for something a bit more solid there, like he was able to hold a position down here for X amount of time and was able to show key performance indicators as to why he earned his corn. And so I would look at Ange and I would say, right, you're in Japan. Again, it takes us back, and then say Scotland, blah, blah, it takes us back to the Del Boy joke, at the market where he's got Rodney in the ski wear. And he goes, this is none of your foreign rubbish. This is from the world leader in alpine ski wear, Fiji. You winning titles or silverware in Japan and Scotland. I wish you well. I really do. But you're not spinning my eye. You're not. I can't get giddy over that. And he's only needed a couple of seasons in both of those divisions to make an impact. But I fear for him at this level, and I always go back to it, and it's always the hand up here. At this level, it's totally different. And a team that is underprepared and underfinanced, essentially, because you only get what you pay for, and that appears to be a sticking point with a number of Tottenham fans. Oh yeah, but I reckon, and it's that magical thing, that mystical device, that lily white shirt. So take the guy who can't walk and put him in a lily white shirt, and suddenly he can be a 100-meter runner. Little old lady who can't reach the cereal on the top shelf in the supermarket. It's okay, madam, we happen to have a lily white shirt here, and suddenly she can zoom up like Super Gran and get to the the crunchy hoops. There is no such garment that exists, ladies and gentlemen. You have to have ability, and the more of it that you've proven, the better. And I just fear for what's going to happen to Ange, because we know he's on decent money, but he's not on Mourinho or Conte money.
I don't even think he's on. Is it 2 million a year? Is it 2 million a year? I think in comparison to Conte, he was on 15.
Yeah,
it looks like a punt, doesn't it? It's just that Levy's just gone. Oh, you'll do. Have a go. You play attacking football. Have a go. Go on. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's and as you said before, that this squad looks, perhaps it might have suited Conte or somebody previous to him, because nobody's ever in the job for an adult length of time. It's always months and whatever. But it's almost like if it was your bike and you lent it to somebody, kids always say, you break it, you buy it. It's sort of like, behave yourself on it because it's my property. With his team, he knows that that nobody owns it. It doesn't have anybody's sort of DNA over it. Oh, there you go, have a go. And as you say, it's a punt. Because the worst case scenario, if we start to drop down the table, I'll just say, oh, what a terrible decision that turned out to be. Isn't life difficult? And they'll go on another bargain hunt looking for somebody to replace him. And that's what we got with Ange, which again, nobody likes to talk about. Is that, was he third or fourth choice? Because I lost count, and I'm not being.
I think he was sixth, actually.
but seriously, it's like I just don't get the mentality, and you get people singing the Postecoglou song and all the rest of it as if he's been here 10 years and he's already won half a dozen cups. Yeah, sure, get behind the manager, but what's the point of doing that? To an enormous degree, when his employer, when the club has not got behind him. That's the killer, because we're going to be playing this season a full schedule of games, and dependent upon, sure, it's easy if we get thrown out of the cups, because that's only another additional 2 games, so that's 40 games a season. And then you've got the UEFA thing with the qualifiers, this, that, and the other. That could be potentially another half a season.
We played 41 games last season, and our squad was so weak and shallow at the end of it, we were running on fumes. And now you consider the amount of outgoings and the amount of ingoings, and I looked at it last night, and we could face potentially another 8 games, so we could put ourselves at the 49, 50 game mark. Well, if the squad wasn't capable last season or strong enough, and you've further reduced the strength of that squad, you're expecting flipping miracles to be achieved if you want to get something out of those available to you. It's ridiculous.
I think we're weaker. Well, I think we're weaker this season with the squad we've got now.
Yeah.
100%.
And if you look at the team that lost 4-0 to Newcastle last season, and arguably if Solanke's out on Sunday, it's the exact same 11. Yeah. So how have we strengthened, refreshed, or improved? We haven't. We're standing still, if not going backwards.
And the thing is, it's not inconceivable. It's not unreasonable. It's not like, well, I went on that podcast and they were moaning. Oh, God, they were moaning. It's a contact sport. It is quite likely you're going to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 players out because they pick up a dink. Nothing life risking, but you're going to have that.
And this segues nicely into something that's really been chomping away at me and getting me upset. Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, not everybody's favourite player, but gave 110%. And when it was getting a bit feisty, it was getting a bit chopsy on the pitch, and you needed somebody who could put the boot in or take a few digs and walk away like the Viking he was. That man would do it week in, week out. Yeah. We accepted a loan deal where we don't see the potential 15 to 17.5 million until the summer of 2025. Well, we've got nobody in that squad now who, when it gets tough and it gets niggly, would be able to put the boot in or stand up to your Thomas Partey's and Declan Rice's. So we are not benefiting the club in any way. We've weakened us, and the difference between Champions League qualification or finishing 10th and 11th is more than 15 million quid. So again, it was a very short-sighted deal. If you want to take that money, have it now so you can spend it now, not delay it for another 12 months, yet not bring anybody in. Like Ollie Skip, not a good player, championship level. But again, we took the money from Leicester. How have we reinvested that money? We haven't. We've become a football club that appeases accountants, and all we're getting excited about is reducing the wage bill and the money we've brought in. But I couldn't care less about that. I want to see a team winning, bringing trophies into that new game-changing stadium, into that trophy cabinet that is full of dust and nothing else. I couldn't care what the economists or the accountants think. Let's focus on what we are, a football club. Let's try and be successful on the pitch, as we're a million miles away from it.
But the trouble is,
when I went in the late...
No, go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say, when I went in the late 90s, yeah. I never
go.
I never sat there and thought, oh, I wonder how much money we're making. And but now it seems to be really exciting for people. I don't care. It's not my money.
You're going out for an expensive meal and somebody else is picking up the tab. Do you worry what the cost of it is? No.
No, not really. No.
But the thing is, you see, this is the answer to those little nitwits that throw up the, oh yeah, but it seems ridiculous to spit when we could buy potentially. The reality is we're 8th most successful club in terms of money generating in the globe, the entire planet. So this we suffered for years with this. Don't want to do a Leeds. Don't want to do a Leeds. Every time we see a pretty player, no, I might do a Leeds. That's gone. We're now so through the looking glass on that we're the 8th most successful, both income driving, whatever language you want to use. But, you know, we're only 10, 20, 30 million away from the likes of Arsenal and Chelsea. And the thing that separates, it's like when you hear that line, the thing that separates these two cars that are identical is the driver. The thing that separates Tottenham is the ambition. And there is no ambition. There's no genuine ambition. And Levy's head, you can just hear the creak as he gets whiplash and it's turned again because somebody's offered to give him X amount of quid to put up some advertising or to be providing an endorsement to, you know, so we're proud to introduce our new chocolate partner. We're proud to introduce our new pillow partner. You know, it's all absolute pish and wind. It's a waste of time. And the absence, the dereliction of duty when it comes to the football. We were told, oh yeah, like Chris was saying, oh yeah, we've got this data-driven this and data-driven. I think that kind of applied very characteristically. You can see with Gray. I think that they've been through the numbers. A player like that sticks out like a sore thumb on the spreadsheets when you're going through the stats. Because you compare him with everybody else and you look at the completed passes, activity in the final third, all this stuff. It's all the stuff that gets you kind of going in that sort of, you know, train spotter community of numbers. And you look at it, go, oh yeah, well he's good, you know, start rubbing the old knees. But the reality, but the reality is that's down the road a piece. What you need is to have a mix of those guys who are waiting to come through. And I would argue that Spurs have never handled change management particularly well. And the moment you get rid of Harry Kane, or Harry Kane goes, or whatever language you want to use, it's like he's been hit by a bus. It came out the blue. I mean, the idea that you would bring in Richarlison, who's still in this, we're told, fabulous multi-million-pound spa complex. He can't get past the foot rub stage to get out of the physio room. You know, he's discombobulating an eyelash every time he goes for breakfast.
Could you display picture 1 that I sent you this morning, H?
I can put it on the screen right now. You won't be able to see it because that's the magic of editing.
Wow. Okay, so you look at this image now, and you've got the Pochettino side of Walker and Rose at fullbacks, Vertonghen and Alderweireld at centre half, Wanyama Dembele as your midfield enforcers, Eriksen and Son out wide, Ali playing behind Kane. How many of the current side, with the exception of Son, who's the last man standing, would have got in that Pochettino side?
That's very difficult to argue a case, because those guys were on their way somewhere, and you only have to look at where most of them are now.
And this is another example. That's not so long ago, but we've regressed. Our recruitment has worsened. We haven't got those players of that capability currently here at Tottenham Hotspur, and we have not signed truly world-class players for some time, so long that our own fans have forgot what a class player looks like. Now we're getting excited about potential coming from relegated Burnley, who may or may not come good in 3 or 4 years' time.
I think that's the thing with Wilson Odobert. Like, I got quite excited seeing him play against Everton, only because I prefer an old-fashioned winger, one that wants to go outside and put a ball in. So I don't want to see him
the week. Yeah,
I don't want to see inside forwards anymore. I'm sick of them.
Well, somebody, I can't remember who it was. I was watching something on the telly. It wasn't Spurs. It was a football thing, and the guy was saying that the quality of football had dipped a lot in recent years, in recent times, because everybody was playing the channels, and there wasn't that traditional winger whipping ball crosses in, and you weren't getting equally those players who were taking a chance on the edge of the box. So you were getting these like the Basuma goal, these wonder strikes, because they've been conditioned into retaining possession, and we've seen that kill the last few Spurs sides. But it wasn't the club's fault; it was the owner's fault, because you don't employ a line tamer as a school teacher, because he's used to just wandering around cracking a whip. And believe it or not, kids don't respond well to that. And these guys were hired against what the club needed. But it's so we've got I think still a very dysfunctional squad, because this leads me awkwardly or whatever onto the thing. Can anybody tell me what Ange Ball is? What does Ange Ball look like?
Well, it's not a thing, is it? I've often referred to it as suicide ball. And Ange Ball is just this romantic notion that our fan base gets carried away with, and they harp on about it, but it's not a thing. And against Everton on Saturday, we go 2-0 up, and we take the steam out of our own sails, and it's all 5-yard passes backwards and sideways. When you want somebody just to put a long ball over the top, as you've got a winger in the channel in space, it doesn't happen. And our players are so conditioned to a specific way of playing that they've gone back 10 years. The recklessness has gone where a player would have individual flair like Ginola and Gascoigne, and they'd create something from nothing. They're not allowed to express themselves. It's a rigid tactic that you've got to embrace and you've got to stay with. And Ange Ball is a romantic notion of very little substance.
Well, yeah, 100%. If Ange Ball has got anything to do with defending, I'll be gobsmacked. It doesn't appear that way to me. It's like the whole to turn around and say we don't practice set pieces, but we keep conceding for set pieces. I just don't get that. What? Oh, okay, yeah. Fine, no problem there. Just don't worry about it. It's only part of the game. Why would you not do it?
You take your car into the garage and you say to the guy, brakes feel a little bit sloppy. He goes, no, we don't have anybody who specialises in brakes. Sorry? Well, we just don't. I mean, the engine's important, the windscreen wipers, but,
we just do tyres and exhausts.
That's our specialist thing.
Yeah, it's true. And even the attacking side of Ange's game, it just seems like playground football to me. Like chase the ball, everyone's going around in packs. There's no space for anybody. That's why Madison's not doing so well, because he hasn't got any opportunity to thread any through balls.
He was almost playing centre back against Everton. I was sat there in the south stand looking at him. I thought, Jesus Christ, he's going to be playing. He'll be subbing for Vicario before long. He was so deep that he came into his own when in that Leicester side, where the pace of Vardy around him, he had others, and he would crop up on the edge of the box or lay balls off wide. He was in danger of getting a nosebleed. He was that far from goal on Saturday, I tell you.
Madison is literally trying to dig out his own space within that side.
I think
constantly. Yeah, go
on. I think a lot of sides, and if you look at Leicester City, without being rude to the guy, but their coach isn't the mastermind of football. He's not the Bielsa of the Premier League. And he realised that you just, you stodge us up, to use a more footballing apt phrase, and we run out of space. And the closest I got to anything that I would appreciate or say, well, this handball thing, I'm kind of getting my head around it, was when we were in those first 10 games of last season, and we had that beautiful, perfect storm of new manager bounce and the desire to get into that sort of space in the final third and ping in lots of sort of fast diamond sort of shaped passing patterns. Now, I'm sure there are certain podcasts where they'll have this all laid out, but I find that such an artificial way of analysing things, because you basically can make up anything you want if you take screenshots of play, ball in play motion. But it struck me when we were playing against like people like Brentford and so forth that, like I say, these sort of diamond dink, 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 difficult to keep concentration on where the ball was going to go. And all you needed was somebody to step over a moving ball, goes through to the third man, and then the cross goes in. And it, like you say there, Chris, it was a little bit playground. I didn't hate it, but it just struck me that we were playing, and this is how I broke it down mentally for myself, that we were playing handball, which was in actual fact five-a-side football, where you don't get the ball going higher than here, and you don't do any long passes. And I will bore you briefly. If you look at any long passes of Spurs, the success rate is very close to toilet. It's almost zero. You're lucky if it's as good as 1 in 5 that actually finds the man, because it's not part of the process. It's not part of the setup with Ange. And even Vicario is the most obvious one. His long ball's out, and he's a fit, healthy, young, decent goalkeeper. They're not going to Spurs players in the main when they're long. All the short passing got it boxed off, and Spurs' general passing rate and their possession, which people absolutely get hyperinflated about because it isn't worth a toss unless you do something decent with it, is all based around the short ball. So,
but again, going back to Vicario, we had the opportunity to sign Ray. Ray was too expensive, so we went for a cheaper option, and that is evidenced with his performances week in, week out on the pitch.
It was occurred to me when I was saying what happened to Eze that we ended up signing this kid from Burnley.
Yeah, but
could there be a background to that? If we got somebody in, pumped them full of truth serum or whatever, tied to a chair in sort of 1940s WW2 style, would they break down and confess that in actual fact this guy, because they wanted 60 million for that other guy, and this kid was less than half? And I can't say that I would be stunned to hear that.
I think we got Odobert off the back of the Pedro Neto deal going south, and at the time we were using the intermediary George Mendes, who got wind of what our offer was. It was something ridiculous, like 30 million plus Oliver Skip, which every club's going to accept as that's too good an offer to turn down. Ollie generational Skip. So that went south, and they knew that he was talking to Chelsea in the background, and then they looked for a wild card, and that wild card came from Wilson.
I don't know. I really don't know, and that's the truth of it. I'm not seeing anything coming through. Admittedly, it's only coming up for 12:30, but I'm not coming through seeing with anything on any of the feeds. And I think if we're waiting for something, it's going to be something left field. Here we go. This is to give us all hope. Troy Parrott is returning to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Hoax, fake news in the Europa League. There you go. That's as close as we're going to get to signing a striker. We recently sold.
What's happening with that Leandro Damião deal, the Brazilian centre forward? Is that any nearer to completion?
Yeah, I'm taking a phone call later on this capped cup, and that's going to give me all the breaking news. There's a dog toy is probably going to fax me through an update on that. But it's just absolute. So unless anybody thinks of anything ridiculously insightful, where is this side going to where's it going to end up going in the new season? Because the huff and puff, as I say, we started off, it was all going to be showbiz, box office, and we're left with this.
I think our season starts Sunday. When the season started, I made some predictions for the opening 10 games, and I actually had us to have 4 points from 10 games, and that's only based on results from last season. And how depressing is that? And that's not being negative; that's just being realistic based on how he was like last season. Because it turns out that towards the end of the season, when we was quite bad, we've got those kind of fixtures at the start of this season. So. I don't think it's going to go well, to be honest with you. I think, even the Coventry away in the Carabao Cup, that's a banana skin, that is, all day long.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, if we go out to Coventry, can you imagine a meltdown?
Bear in mind that the Coventry game, you can bet your bottom dollar that he's not going to play his best 11 because he can't.
If you don't, he's mental.
Who have we got after the Coventry game? I don't have the thing in front of me, but it's it's a moot point because whoever we've got is in the Premier League, and that takes priority for Captain Cheerful.
Yeah, if he's been told that, 100%, he's not going to.
Well, he has been. I would humbly suggest he has been told it because you saw the fiasco when we played Fulham. And he didn't play his best side. And he came out at the end coughing and wheezing and spluttering and clearing his throat and said it was a fact-finding team selection. And I, being the usual charming self, I said, what do you mean fact-finding? We found these facts out over the last 2 seasons. You tinker with our best 11. You're like the handicapper at a horse race. You've got it in your hands to completely destroy our chances. And that's what you've did.
Yeah. So I don't see it going very well, to be honest with you. The whole Ange experiment. I've actually predicted that he'd get sacked before the Villa game. So
when's that?
When's
the Villa game?
It's the start of November, I think. My prediction, and I made it a while back, and I'm quite happy to change my mind. It's not me sticking to my guns. My prediction is that he will storm out. And I think that he will have a temperature rise in the press pack meetings that they have. I think you don't have to be a psychiatrist, psychologist to see what's going on. We see him wheeled out for ITV. He speaks fine. I thought he was fantastic on ITV. He added great value. Obviously knows a fair bit about the game. Spoke well, spoke openly and honestly, just came across as a great choice for a pundit. Clearly the wrong demographic, being a white guy over the age of 40, but that's not my problem. And then he comes back to Spurs. Hi Ange, how are you? And he stares at his toes while he's talking to the guy that he's giving the answer to. Yeah. So that's more than a tick. That's more than a tick. That's like I was bitten by a wolf as a child, sort of thing. And every time I see next door's dog, I start shaking and leave a wet patch on the carpet. Yeah.
Another one whose downfall will be Daniel Levy, the man who's seen off more managers than we have won any cups.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, and it's interesting that Slot has come in and hasn't made any overreaching changes at Liverpool, and they look as if they know what they're doing, because their starting point in terms of the quality they've got in their squad, it didn't require it.
And then add Chiesa for 12 million, probably the bargain of the transfer window.
Yeah, absolutely.
At that money.
And you realise that money was funded via the sell-on fee for Solanke, which we paid. So they've effectively, had a 20-25% sell-on in the original terms when he went to Bournemouth. So happy days for them. They've done also what we don't. They've already got a really good goalkeeper in Alisson Becker. And what do they do? They go out and contingency plan for the future, sign this guy who played for Georgia in the European Championships, but then they leave him on loan at his parent club for 12 months. So we never do that. We haven't got the ability to do that. We lack the forethought and the preactive thoughts around that difference in how the two clubs are run.
Contingency plan. What is this witchcraft of which you speak?
Well, yeah.
You're speaking in tongues.
To be fair, Chris, we have just signed Min-hyeok, and we've left him at his parent club.
Yeah, dare I say that's to continue the income from our tourists visiting the Matchday Stadium for 19 games a season.
I don't actually see that as much of a dare. I see that as much of as like, well, the old door fell out and we're putting a new door in because we quite like having a door there. That's the way I see that. I don't see that as a great surprise. To use one of your phrases, Chris, I'm surprised you didn't sign a South Korean fetus. Really pack the value into the year. Yeah, we've got him on a 4-decade deal.
Yeah, well, we're exploring the embryo market as I speak, I'm led to believe.
And people felt I was joking when I referred to it as a soul harvesting device. It's actually...
It's only a matter of time before we move into the IVF field.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I think it's difficult jumping onto these things. I've had some absolute nightmares in the past. But you did well. You did well. I walked off a 2, but
yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll have to give you another name. We'll have to give you another name, like Big Sexy Papa or something.
Well, if you want to bring your personal life into this, guys, just sort it out between yourselves.
Just try to rate me.
Right. I'll see you when the fog clears. I'll get this out later on. And Chris, if you give us Chris's email, I'll stick him on the Substack thing because in time, I'll
text it.
I'm going to put all the content that we make. I'll put it out on the Substack first, then on Rumble. I need to get on with and then YouTube.
Just think there's going to be incel virgin little wankers doing 8-hour streams as we speak, and there's going to be all this uproar and furore, and there's going to be same shit, different day, and people having meltdowns, people paying super chats just to say, "Oh, it's all going peaked on."
I honestly don't know how people have so much time on their hands. Like on the group that we're on, Chris. On the group we're on.
Yeah, I think this is where we could have a little badge, old guys rule, because it's far better for 3 old fellas.
The super chat thing absolutely kills me. That kills me. I was on a live stream with this guy called Terry Fleurs.
Oh, I've heard of him.
Yeah. He went to Turkey and got his hair done. And as somebody who's been to that country for work, I'm perhaps the best place to mock. But my God. And he did this thing. And this kid says, "Hey, Terry, do you know who Manchester United are going to be signing this winter?" And he said, and that comes from Barry in Luton. No, mate. I just went off, carried on. And there's a video on YouTube because somebody clocked it and chopped it and put it up. And I'm sat there like the guy visiting from another planet. And I said, "Sorry, did you just bill him a $5 to say I don't know?" How does that work? But I knew the guy was running the thing, and I dropped him an email afterwards. I said, "Look, I'm sorry, but I'm not. How can you operate like that?" And they said that they'd send their kids something to make up for it. I don't know if they did. Might have sent them a fruit basket or something. But yeah, how do you run a business like that? It's like charging somebody to tell them what's on the McDonald's menu. Dear me. Well, listen, I think we've had a good go at this, to be honest. I think it's only going to degenerate into more cannibalism if we go on. I'm not sure how we look. We're coming up for the hour mark, 50 odd minutes. Don't think we've done enough, and I think we're all of a mind that something could be going horribly wrong before Christmas. And if anybody watching this wants to drop into the comment section, because I always say this and nobody ever does, make a point. Don't just tell me I've got a beard, or he's wearing a blue t-shirt, or that one's wearing a cap. Make a point. Explain yourself. It doesn't have to be like, the Gettysburg Address, but tell us why you feel so optimistic. Not because you were born that way doesn't cut it. This is where the grown-ups sit. So if you want to tell us why we're wrong, to take this, what I would argue is a pragmatic approach, then tell us, explain yourself, because I just don't see it. And one guy on the last thing, bless him, he actually said to me, he actually threw up, because I said Kulusevski was quiet. He did get an assist at the Everton game. And he said in block capitals, he never loses the ball.
Oh,
okay, I'm just going for a short walk.
I'll give you one further point to consider before we retire. And thank God for that game-changing stadium.
Yeah,
and
it's made a world of difference.
Yeah, that
it's made a world of difference.
Investment, which we were led to believe would change our football club forever. Thank God for that.
Well, actually, I feel more solidly about this than you do, because just think it wouldn't have been the stadium that it is had the Levy family not wandered through it, relentlessly getting things changed and altered. It wouldn't have cost as much, and it wouldn't have been as wonderful as it is today. Without them, I think we really need to mention them in dispatches, because it's not just the architects and the men with the tools that put that together. It was their incessant fiddling that
talked about the fire safety system.
The fire safety system, which brings us full circle back to that. When are they going to build on the NFL deal of 2 games a year?
And when are we finally going to land the naming rights on the stadium?
Oh, don't be ridiculous. That was such a stupid idea. We actually put that guy on gardening leave and then sent him to Chelsea. That's the message. This is the first stadium to have a helicopter pad, and so far only 1 helicopter has landed.
Yeah.
Everybody's going, unbelievable. That's amazing. Wow. And so far, the only person who's come is the bloke who was testing it to sign the thing off.
Just saying, those poor souls stuck on the International Space Station will be home before we've progressed with naming rights.
Now, come on, this is getting really mean, really uncalled for. Okay, well, listen, guys, thank you very much. I'm all looking forward to what happens before Christmas. Christmas could be a long wait this year, I think. But that's it for now. So don't forget, kids, ignore this and look forward to all the excitement. And don't forget to tell your mummy and daddy that you're going to be staying up really late, because it's about to get really exciting. And don't forget, keep it Tottenham.